Hey, Jim, when you guys played Jaguars last year, man, Trevor Lawrence was limping a bit. What kind of challenge does he present to you now that he's healthy?
Yeah, honestly, we were prepared for him last year to be more limited than he was. He was still scrambling. He still had good mobility and things like that. So I don't know. I'm sure it affected him a little bit, but it wasn't as severe as we were thinking it might be going into that game. He's a rapidly maturing young quarterback, very talented, both with his legs and with his arm. Makes quick decisions, and you can really see his transformation as a young player to now a veteran player and just getting the ball out quick and those kind of things, particularly first and second down. Really good at ID and coverage and knowing where he's going with the ball. We were able to force him into mistakes in the first game. We had the 3 interceptions and a forced fumble and then a turnover on downs, and we're going to have to do the same. It's a great challenge for us.
Losing Juan, Mo, two linebackers all in 1 week. I know you hope to get them back this season, but just how difficult of a challenge is that when you lose 4 contributing defenders after just 1 week?
Yeah, we lost 4 in the same game last year in the Jacksonville game. Jordan Elliott went down with a concussion, and Obo and Mo tore their pecs, and Grant Delpit tore his groin, and Denzel wasn't playing. So nothing new for us. Would say with those injuries, it does give other people some opportunities, and we have some good young players that can step right in. And then when we get those guys back, I expect it to give us a good boost. I think, I was telling our staff the other day, I said we got to treat it like, a month from now, however long it takes, that AB comes down and says, hey, we just traded for Juan Thornhill, or we just traded for Mo Hurst, or we just traded for, Tony Fields, or, Mahmoud, or whoever it is. It doesn't change our expectations. It doesn't change our standards. Those guys work really hard to come back as soon as they can, and when they do, there'll be a boost for us.
Is playing better than Jefferson to earn that starting job?
Yeah, I thought he had a really consistent camp, and we're happy with all those guys, Tony. You know that we roll those guys through a lot, and we blur the lines of who the, quote, starters are and things like that. It's really more about reps and things like that than who's out there and in which group. But, up until his injury in training camp, that hamstring, Mo had put a really good camp together and made a lot of plays for us, made a lot of plays last year. So, however it works out, our guys will be in there. We have veteran players, we have young players, and you guys know we rotate those defensive linemen through, so we really blur the lines of, quote, starters and backups. We call it Alpha and Bravo, right? It's just like, next wave hit the beach.
Jim, last year Evan Engram had a big game against you guys. Just the matchup problem he creates. He's a tight end, but they also use him a lot at receiver. Just as a wide receiver, just specific to him and their offense. What kind of matchup problems does he create?
Yeah, I played him for a long time. He was at the Giants when I was in Philly. And like you said, he's a hybrid wide receiver / tight end. There's a lot of those guys in the league now. They use them all over the place and those things. And, I was actually early in the game last year, I was happy with our coverage. And then, we lost Grant and, Rodney had been down the week before and Juan was out and things like that. We were trying to minimize our matchup, and we also had the lead in the game. So I think some of that production can be a little bit twisted, but he's a great matchup. He's an important matchup for us. Just because, he was their number 1 target last year, number 1 receiver, and pretty close. He led the whole NFL in tight end targets last year. So you got to know where he is all times. It affects your nickel, dime, all your sub packages, how you're going to treat him as a tight end or as a wide receiver. we went through it last year. It's the players understand his role and how they use him in the run game and in the passing game.
About those home road splits a lot last year, but this is the first road test. What's been your message to the guys?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just be us the best that we can be and worry about those kind of things and, and probably, also sort of atoning for some of our mistakes last week. We played really, really good in spots last week, but we missed some opportunities to make some more plays. In both of their touchdown drives, we aligned off sides. One of them negated a 2nd and 14. The other one negated a 2nd and goal from the 7, when you got really good chances to win those drives. And it probably flew a little bit under the radar, but there were times, particularly in the first touchdown drive, that we had opportunities to intercept the ball, and we didn't get it done. And I'm not talking about Denzel's, because Denzel's are great plays, and he'll make some of those. But there's some other chances for us to get drives stopped and those kind of things. What I was proud about the team last week, middle of the second quarter, after we had given up that second touchdown, our guys rallied on the sideline. Coaches did a really good job of making some adjustments to some of the stuff that they were trying to take advantage of. And, we came out. I think at that point we gave up like 50 yards the rest of the game from the middle of the second quarter on. So, there's a little bit of, I don't say atone for last week, but that's left a bitter taste in our mouth. Anytime you lose a game, you're trying to put that in your rearview mirror. So there's a little bit of that. And, being on the road, being in a different environment, in some ways, it's having that home crowd being loud and things like that, that helps us. In some ways, it can hinder us when it comes to our communication at home. It's a little bit easier to communicate on the road. We're striving to be consistent. We're not there yet.
Communication, going back to that Brandon Cooks touchdown, that 21-yarder, was that a communication breakdown, and do you think that's a fairly easy fix?
Oh, yeah, that's a super easy fix. And it really wasn't a communication breakdown, as it just was a technique error. But that's a play we expect to make. And, I don't assign individual blame when it comes to the media and things like that, but that's a defensive breakdown on that play. That's a play that when we got the pressure on that play and he threw off his back foot and just lobbed it up, the very first thing that went into my mind was, that's picked. And then I was like, what happened? And that's not a good feeling to be in as a defensive coordinator or as a player. So that's a little bit of the inconsistency that I talked about. And that's been on my mind since the beginning of training camp, when it comes to everybody being out there and playing together and, nobody cares. I mean, you don't grade on the curve. That's not 5 points for a touchdown because a lot of guys miss training camp. Life in a big city. We have to perform better. And, our offense was struggling. And if we make a turnover in one of those, I think we can change the momentum of the game and let them get some legs. And that's our job to do as a defense, I mean, there were some tough situations. I think on the 4 field goals they kicked, don't quote me, but I think they got like 1 first down total on those drives. So our guys were responding well to that. We just need to respond better early in the game. We can give our offense a boost. We can give our crowd a boost. And and respond when we need to.
What are you sensing then this week in terms of just the resolve to get this thing turned around?
Yeah, I mean, it's a proud group, and I don't know if I'd say like get it turned around. I mean, it's one game, and I don't know if this stat still holds, and I can't even remember how long. I remember addressing the team one time. Maybe I was in Detroit, maybe I was in Philly, maybe Tennessee. I can't really remember, but at one time, teams that started 1-0 had a less chance to make the playoffs than the teams that started 0-1. And I couldn't wrap my arms around like why that was. And the best I could come up with is the teams that were 0-1 had to confront their problems, right? They were embarrassed by the performance. It's a big game, and You know, and you have to go out and it's an immediate self-check. You know, you get slapped and, hey, we got to go, the urgency to get it right. And maybe there's a tendency, if you start 1-0, maybe you dismiss or ignore some of those same problems just because of the result of the game. So I think it's been a little bit more of that. We have a really proud group on offense and defense, and they're anxious to, you know, to put that week behind, come up with a win on the road.
How do you balance keeping things simple and letting the guys play fast, and also mixing up your looks and not giving the defense anything too consistently?
You know, I mean, it really just depends, like game-wise and, you know, different things like that. You know, that's a challenge every week, but we want to play fast, we want to play physical, and you want to, like, one of the things I try to do is eliminate as many if-then statements for each player as we can, right? Don't give them too many. Like, you know, one, if this happens, then do this, but don't, well, if this happens and this happens and this happens, you know, it's all part and parcel to, you know, what we want to do. That being said, I don't think, particularly in that first 20 minutes of the game, we got really tired on that one drive, you know, that they went down and scored. The first drive had a little bit of NFL football there, right? CeeDee Lamb, Denzel, perfect coverage. Both guys go up, they come down with the ball, man, NFL football right there. But there were some other times where execution could be an issue. The second drive, I really felt that we had lost our and not intensity. I'm trying to think of the best word, but we were tired. We weren't communicating super fast. We weren't playing super fast. I think it was an 11-play drive. And, you know, we got to do better in that situation. So, you know, it's always, you guys know, like, we want to be known as a fast defense. And you can't slow players down with too much. But we have enough looks to be able to balance our stuff out and all those things.
Last one.
Defensive line is the engine to your defenses. But in your time here this year in one game, how are you satisfied with the production from your safeties?
Safeties. Well, first of all, we do expect our D-line to be our engine and to drive us. You know, I think it's like when I generally don't talk about individual players when it comes to production or, you know, different things. It's more just about the group as a whole. I was not dissatisfied with our safety group in that game. Like I said, there were a couple plays in there, and they might fly below the radar because it might look like a good play on film. But in our scheme, there were opportunities to jump routes or to, you know, do some of those kind of things. It was disappointing to lose Juan because I thought he played really physical in that game, led us in tackles, and was doing a good job. And we got a lot of young players, or a mixture of vet players and young players. Yeah, it's about the group as a whole, but I was not dissatisfied with our safeties.
Where'd you come up with that 0-1 number? That's pretty fast.
Yeah, Jeff, I don't remember when that was. But I distinctly remember, like, telling the team that. Who knows? Maybe I made it up. I don't know. It sounded good. But again, you know, just with human nature and things. Maybe somebody fed it to me to try to. But I think the message there is, you know, anytime you lose a game, there is immediate. There might be a little bit more urgency to confront your problems and not gloss over things and self-correct and to be more determined to go out and correct that. And maybe sometimes when you win, sometimes you can lose that, you know. And when I took over Detroit years ago, that was a team that was used to dealing with failure. They had trouble dealing with success. Right. It was like they won a game and, you know, and it went to our heads really quickly. And particularly the first couple of years, that was a difficult process to go through. Sometimes it's harder to deal with success in this league than it is to a failure. But I think if we do our job as players and as coaches and you guys write the story of the 2024 Browns, and if this is a successful season for us, I hope that we can all look back and say, you know what, they lost that opener, but in the long run, that was a good thing for this team. And if that's the case, then then we can turn that toward something good. If we fail to correct our issues and confront our problems and confront our execution and those kind of things, then it won't have had the effect that we hope it. Okay? Thank you guys.